Who could you become if you trusted the power of small steps, not because they're all you're capable of, but because lasting transformation is rarely built through one huge breakthrough moment, the day that you finally feel ready enough or confident enough? What if sustainable transformation is more simple and more profound through small acts of courage repeated over time, in choosing to trust yourself and starting before you're certain, and perhaps those small actions shape who you're becoming? Today, we're exploring how lasting change is created, how identity evolves through that action, and why progress, not perfection, may be the key to becoming the person you want to be. Hey, and welcome back to soulSHINE. I am so excited to be joined by our special guest today, Monica Packer. She is a habits and identity coach, a podcast host, and an expert in sustainable personal growth. Through her podcast About Progress, reaching millions of listeners, Monica has helped women move beyond perfectionism and build meaningful change through realistic and compassionate action. As a coach, a former teacher, a mother, and author of Sticky Habits, she brings practical wisdom for creating lasting transformation from the inside out. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you for having me. I'm like already taking notes. I mean, even just what you said, I'm like, yeah, that's what we got to talk about. That's really good. So thank you for showing up with such intention. I think this is going to be a great conversation.
I love it. Well, I'm glad it's exciting you because we have the perfect person, you, to help us navigate some of these. And I actually, when I was like poking around in your world and listening to some of your podcasts, I wanted to actually just jump straight into perfectionism because I think I have, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a controversial take on it. And I would love your wisdom and your perspective on the relationship to perfectionism, because I think that, you know, words are limited and they get created by the culture of the times and the history that they're coming from. And I think when I personally hear the word perfectionism or perfectionist, the immediate first thing I think of is like the maladaptive perfectionism that is rooted in anxiety and in fear of judgment and like a protective mechanism. And it's like a destructive container that sort of erodes your self-trust, because if I can't do it right, then I'm not going to get that thing or be worthy of belonging, or I'm going to be rejected. And so I grip tighter and tighter. And I think because of that, I think it gets a bad rap. And I just contemplate like the difference between perfection or excellence or rigor or high standards versus the relationship we have to it. Because like, for example, if someone is doing brain surgery on my child, like, yes, please do a perfect surgery. You know, it's my child. It's invaluable. And I wonder if there's another relationship available where we don't have to drop the high standards and we can cope and adaptively, you know, support ourselves through the fear, through the doubt, through all of the stuff that the human experience brings up, and allow every time we don't hit the mark, every time we're quote unquote failed or deficit in something, to instead bring up innovation and curiosity and a more compassionate relationship to ourselves. And I don't know if I'm just like on an island with that, or what are your thoughts about perfectionism?
You're not on an island. I think you did an amazing job of describing what maladaptive perfectionism looks like. So I want to start there a bit and then kind of paint the picture of what I think the alternative is to perfectionism. And spoiler alert, it's not giving up.
I love that.
It's not giving up. Okay. So first, let's talk about maladaptive perfectionism, which is the most common type. Like that is the right thing to think of, because, you know, in our generation, I think we're around the same kind of age, but, you know, if you grew up in the 80s, 90s, even early aughts, then you probably at least, I don't know, 5,000 times heard people kind of humble brag about their perfectionistic tendencies. You know, it was a worthy trait, something that was not only admirable, but a quality to work towards, to try to embody. And so a lot of us, even though we're going to be talking about the maladaptive effects of it, grew up believing that one, perfectionism was a worthy trait, and two, it's one that we could actively pursue. And also three, that it was the path to get what we wanted on the other side. And because a lot of us are very good girls, and we have good intentions and we want to be good at things and do better at things, we get sucked into that perfectionism trap in terms of the hustling, in terms of the cost, the heavy prices that we are paying for perfectionism in terms of all or nothing efforts, again, that cost us. So let's now talk about what perfectionism actually is. Perfectionism, yes, can be a coping mechanism, especially for those who've experienced trauma. It can be a way of trying to deal with anxiety, like you said, or approval from others, and all of those things are true. But at its core, perfectionism is a misplacement of identity. It's placing our sense of self, the way we see ourselves, on our outcomes. Now, the thing about that is there's a spectrum to perfectionism. Automatically, we think of the overachieving perfectionist, right?
Right.
Achievement at all costs, and they pay those costs. Okay, that's the people that you can think of who are the straight A students, climbing the corporate ladder, like the type A PTA kind of mom, like anything that can go in that camp, we automatically think of that. But in truth, again, perfectionism is a spectrum. And oftentimes you're going to find people who are actually in the underachieving camp. And that can be the price of perfectionism that they pay, is they're paying all so much that it leads to them being forced into the nothing side. It becomes a pendulum swing, really. Okay.
Interesting.
Whether it's, you pay the price of your mental health or your relationships or your physical health. That was me. As I was approaching my 20th birthday, I was the overachieving, seeking out perfectionist. Like I was trying to embody that, and I did a good job. I was very good at it. And I had a whole litany of like achievements to go with it. I say the negative version of it because I paid the price. And for me, it was multiple eating disorders and mental health issues that led to me wanting to take my own life and getting really close to it. Luckily, I got some great help, but in pursuit of my own recovery, I went to the nothing side of perfectionism, where I stayed safe on the sidelines, where I was too afraid to try, where I was waiting for the right time or the right circumstance or the right skill set or the certainty of the outcome or even the money, like the opportunity. And all that waiting, 10 years of that, led me to a similar place of feeling really lost and stuck in my own life and really struggling with my mental health again. I was still paying a price of my perfectionism. And I didn't know I still qualified as a perfectionist because I thought I'm doing nothing with my life. For my responsibilities, I was a middle school teacher and I was a stay-at-home mom for several years. For those things, I could show up. But for myself, my own dreams, my own self-care, my own habits, my own hobbies, anything that was about me, I stayed on those sidelines. And that's when I had a great therapist who pointed out that I was indeed a perfectionist, which was news to me. I've since learned quite a lot about perfectionism, but it really goes back to that core. Regardless of where you are on the spectrum, if you are placing this identity, this inner knowing of who you are on your outcomes, whether you have them or not, you are always placing it on a faulty foundation. One that is, even if you get the achievements, they never last. They do not stay. Okay. And if you never get them, same thing. You're placing your identity on the sense of like nothing, not doing anything. And this is where we have to paint, well, what is like the picture of what the alternative is. The alternative to perfectionism is not doing nothing, because that's actually still a version of perfectionism. The alternative to perfectionism is progress. To me, that's semantics. You could say adaptive perfectionism or, adaptive, whatever it might be, of pursuit of excellence and growth. But the way you do it is far different. And we can go into this a lot more, but the nutshell version here is perfectionists thrive off of shame. They thrive off of all or nothing, black and white. Again, the misplacement of identity is really strong. Self-criticism is really strong. They may bounce between that, those two spectrums, like day to day. Like they may pay a price like mid-morning and then be in the nothing camp, or they may spend whole seasons in this all, and then spend whole seasons in the nothing camp. But regardless, they're kind of bouncing between that all or nothing. And because of that, embodying the whole spectrum of perfectionism. But progress looks like making space for failure. It looks like embodying more curiosity and compassion instead of shame. It's knowing that you're playing the long game. And it also is knowing that the whole point is the process, not the outcome anyway, that you will never arrive. And because of that, you are able to stay on the path better and longer, because once you hit a fork in the road or you get bumped off the path that you thought you were on, you know that I'm still on the path. I'm still allowed to keep going because this is what the path actually looks like. It's not that perfect linear from bottom left corner to upper right corner. That's not what progress looks like. Progress looks like this, like a curvy roller coaster kind of path. And as long as I'm staying on the path, I'm doing it right. And I'm going to move forward, improve, get better, and gradually become more of the person I want to be, less than it being about the achievements I need to achieve to prove that identity. So I've just talked a lot.
I love everything that you said. There's so many things I want to reflect back to you. Well, firstly, is thank you for sharing your story and the vulnerability and courage that that takes to just paint that picture of what it was like in your 20s. And I know that that's so important for people to hear because there's still a stigma around mental health and needing help and the ways that that can look. And I think that it's so important to have people in our lives, whether we actually know them or we follow them, that we can see on the other end, that can transmute this awful experience, this human experience, into one of growth and of progress and of wisdom. So thank you for making that contrast really so available to us to live with you. But I really also appreciate the way that you illuminate the other side of in your 30s, how perfectionism can also just look like paralysis and on the outside that nothing is happening. But really the point I take from you driving it home is that the inner game is still the same, the one of identity rooted in external outcomes, whether it's from overachieving or paralysis. The outward manifestation might look different for each person, but it's really more a question of where does my identity come from, my worth, my belonging, my et cetera. And how can I find that safety within to hold myself through uncertainty or rejection or failure or shame. And I really love the through line that you put there of self-compassion, making it a sustainable relationship to self, that it's one that you can come back to with curiosity and compassion. And I imagine that that took some time to get to. Yeah, it sounds, so sometimes so easy to hear someone's story of 20 years in the making, like an overnight success. What would you tell a listener who is in the midst of that season, who might be feeling like she's failing all of these expectations at home, at work, and her friendships and her life, and she has a sense of what you're saying, but is still in the messy middle of it? What would you say to yourself back then?
Yeah, I'm glad you're targeting that this took time and it took experimenting. And that's what I had to do starting at 30. This has been now 10 years now of experimenting on what does progress look like outside of perfectionism? What does it look like for me to still pursue being the person I want to be, and as part of that betterment in my life and striving for more without that all of the negative baggage that comes with perfectionism. So it's taken time. But for someone who is at that starting line, like I was 10 years ago now, for those who are feeling like I just keep failing, what I would tell them and what I would have told myself now is you are not failing. You were set up to fail. So much of how we teach about achievement and success, and especially in the self-help industry, the wellness industry, even culturally and community-wise and within our own families, is we are sold a bill of lies, basically, that in order to get what you want, it looks like this, which is like hustle at all costs. It's all or nothing. It's extreme measures. It's never giving up, essentially never making space for being human. And when you're a human and life doesn't go according to plan, which is everybody, and it's even like a day doesn't go according to plan, like when was the last time that happened? Like never, right? In many ways, the models we've been given, the messaging we've been given is what has set us up to fail, instead of it being a personal failing on our part. And that doesn't mean we then check out. It just means we acknowledge that there's a different way. And the first thing we can really do is start to be more aware of what are these what's the bill of lies we've been sold? What are some of those lies that we've believed? Maybe one is overnight success. Okay. We believe like, oh, that success looks like a linear path. Like you put in the work and you get to where you want. And if you don't, it's your fault. Well, that's a lie. We've got to take that back. We've got to get objective and curious about it. We've got to actually question it. Same thing with the overnight success. I would say another lie we're told about perfectionism is that arrival piece. That there's an arrival when there's not. You know, when we talk about that, there is no arrival.
Right.
And there's as part of that too, there's never going to be an arrival that makes you feel certain about who you are too. Okay. Also, we've got to, as part of those bills of lies, kind of connect them to those prices we're paying.
Yeah.
Regardless of where we are on the spectrum. And a lot of what that can come down to is a disconnect. We disconnect from others. Perfectionists are really good at hiding who they are from their loved ones, from the friends to family. I mean, when I was struggling with my eating disorders, nobody knew. 0 people knew besides my therapist. That was it. And that was in large part because I was so ashamed. And I didn't want people to know that I was imperfect. And to go even further, that my eating disorders were not like the praiseworthy kinds, especially as a woman growing up in the 90s and early aughts. Like I was basically a failed anorexic, which was really shame-driven for me to be honest about. It wasn't even until a few years into my own marriage that my husband finally knew like that what my eating disorder was. Like because I never said the words, you know?
Right.
Like he knew I had struggled, but again, like there's a big, that's one of the prices we pay is a disconnect with other people. But I would say the primary disconnection is with ourselves. Perfectionists get really good at not listening to themselves. Okay. If you're hustling at all costs, one of the biggest costs is your own intuition. That part of you that's saying this is too much, or this has gone too far, or that's not the right way for me, or maybe it doesn't have to be that way, or maybe it's this path or this kind of method. Like we lose that sense of connection. So if you're at the starting line, I'm just going to get back to that starting line person. Start thinking about where you are on that spectrum right now. And where have you been on that spectrum in the past? When have you been bouncing between the all or nothing? And I would ask you to think of what are the prices that you've paid so that you can then begin to question the ways that we've been set up to fail. And start to question, is it me or is it actually just this bill of lies that I've been sold about what it looks like to grow and to be a better person? And maybe those are faulty and wrong and you know, dressed in like a costume that doesn't exist and that I don't have to buy into anymore. And that I'm allowed to begin to listen to myself and make space for my own humanness too, and still grow. And I will tell you, and for this person, I've grown exponentially the last 10 years as I've made room for failure more than I did for certain the 10 years prior when I was an underachieving perfectionist, but even more than the 20 years where I was the overachieving kind too. And it's a deeper kind of growth too. It's been deeper and broader and more rewarding because I also know the work is never done too.
Yeah. And I love that. There's 2 things that kind of struck me in this response. And one, what I'm receiving from it is like, your vision is not wrong. Perhaps it's just the path of how to get there that could be questioned and challenged.
That's
Instead
right.
of this external path, it's this invitation inward to your values, to your intuition. But the second one, as you were talking and like reflecting, like it's been 10 years. I wonder if she still struggles with this. I feel like life is often this like spiral staircase. And I think that I like learn one thing and then the next relationship or dynamic or container, I meet myself in the same place, but at a deeper level like this again. But it's not maybe a failure that I didn't learn the lesson the first time, but a different angle, a different flavor, a different container because it's at home instead of at work, or it's with this friend, or it's in that season, or it's with this context. And I think sometimes in the self-help world, we get so focused on like the healed version, thinking that like this human experience will never go away. And we forget that invitation, which I hear you calling us back to over and over, to be human and to make space for the human experience as an experience, whether we call it failure or progress or whatever words we want to limit it with or try to describe it with. And I just, I wanted to maybe pick your brain or sort of your experience over these 20 years as you continue to relate to yourself in deeper and deeper ways. How does that continue to inform your life or your work or your relationship to that part of yourself?
Mm-hmm. So beyond kind of recognizing these patterns of perfectionism and the lies that are told to it and the prices that we've been paying for them, to actually work on healing and to still like make progress in ways that matter to us, we have to get really clear on who we are. And the way I did that, I can talk more about. But what I want to say about that is there's also no arrival with that either. Everything is cyclical, just like you noted. Like I said, I was a middle school teacher. So you learn this as like when you're in teaching training, at least the good training programs will teach you that to be a good teacher, you teach the same things over and over and over again, but also in different ways. Mm-hmm. It's like called spiralized curriculum.
Oh,
you
interesting.
Keep coming back to revisit it. Okay. Which is really, isn't that interesting? I'll give you a personal example.
Yeah.
So I've noted that we have to know what our identity is outside of our outcomes as part of that. Maybe it's what you get done in a day. Mm-hmm. Like you have to remove your sense of self from your own productivity. And I thought I had made a lot of progress in that area, and I had. But then I had my 5th kid 3 years ago. And he was born 5 years after my 4th. So in many ways, it felt like starting over. I mean, I was Googling nap schedules and how to feed him. And now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, he was actually a really tricky baby. Like I didn't even recognize that fully in the moment because I suddenly was swept up in why am I doing this wrong? Or how do I not know how to do this? Or, but a big part of it was I could, with my other kids, like probably the last 3 before him, like postpartum is never fun, but I could just kind of get right back into normal like productivity levels. Mm-hmm. This time I couldn't. Wow. Like I could barely unload the dishwasher or fit a shower in. And that was another moment of a cycle, right? Where I had to revisit, who am I outside of what I get done in a day?
Yeah.
Do I really believe the things I've taught at the time for the last 7, 8 years? Do I really believe that I am not my list, my to-do list, or what I do in a day? And I was so fortunate at that time to learn how to be more, transparent and to be more human, like even with the people I teach. And so I shared like how I was struggling with that in real time with my community. And a woman commented, this was on an Instagram post, and she commented saying she has learned in her postpartum times, and this can be applied to anyone. It's not, you don't have to be pregnant, postpartum, have kids, it doesn't matter. During a time of survival, right? Mm-hmm. She said she's learned that being present is being productive. And that became my mantra for about a year. And now I'm still getting back to where I was before my pregnancy. Now it's been like 4 years essentially of kind of working myself back to a normal amount of what I used to be able to do 4 years ago. So I didn't enjoy that time. It wasn't pleasant. I wasn't skipping through it. But because I did know that identity is not static, these lessons are actually cyclical. There's going to be things we're going to have to revisit, or these layers of perfectionism. It's really just humanness that we're going to have to keep revisiting. I was able to stay on the path because the old me would have been like, well, I'm just doing it wrong. I would blame myself. I would boot myself off the path. Or I would buckle down and find like someone who's teaching me the path and get on their path and try to do it the exact way they're teaching me. And then, pay a price or fail or judge myself and then get booted off somehow. So because of that, I can say like, I learned more about myself than I even knew I needed to at that point. So yes, beautiful. It's all cyclical. All of this is cyclical. I think it's so important that we know who we are. And also as part of that, who we are is allowed to develop and grow and change. 2020 is when I knew leadership was one of my top 5 values. That's been replaced with adventure the last few. And that's okay,
Right. Yeah.
So that's the part of it too, is part of the healing process is connecting back with ourselves, like we talked about. And as part of that, understanding when it's okay that we're being challenged again or in different ways, or when parts of our value system or what matters to us or our own interests are changing. You know, 2020, I probably would have told you my 5-year plan would be like me speaking on stages in these fancy suits and stuff. Right now, my 5-year plan is I would love to be a grandma, maybe without the grandkids. Like, I just want to be like in a garden and doing quilting and not, I don't have that same ambitiousness. And that doesn't mean I didn't know who I was,
Sure.
6 years ago. It's
Right.
just, that's been allowed
Evolve.
to change. And maybe I'll want to do the speaker thing later. I don't know. And honestly, I don't care because I get to embody this as I go.
Yeah, I love that so much. And when I heard you say, sort of like, I don't remember your exact words, but the equivalent of like, we are beyond our to-do list. I also heard like, we're beyond our roles. Like, it's not just who am I outside of the things I got done, but also who am I outside of these labels I am to these people of wife and mother and teacher and recovering perfectionist, et cetera. Like, there's so much more space for our beingness, which is the second thing that I really appreciate in your answer of challenging where does our identity get formed and how. And I think in this modern age, it's so much by the doingness that we forget the value and the importance of the beingness. Like you said, in that woman who responded to you on social media, that presence.
Being present is being productive.
Presence is being productive.
I only know because I had to say it to myself about 1,000,000 times. So
yeah. And I think that's so beautiful and equally like harmonious. Of course, to support the productivity, that should be a byproduct of who we are, not just who we do. We are human beings, not human doings. But I think that's such a beautiful reminder to invite that space of presence is as important as I am love, I am listening, I am connection, I just am. Without the rest of it. And it's, thank you for, and like, of course, it's a natural segue into what you were just saying. How does that then inform your evolution for the next season of maybe wanting to be ambitious speaker, et cetera, to like on the floor with your kids in the dirt?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And without any pressure, except just the connection to self, to your own spirit, to your own heart, to your own truth of the moment, and how much freedom that gives you. I think that's such a beautiful arc.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And also, again, like none of this is smooth, right? And that's kind of all part of what I've really learned is discomfort is part of the process too. And I think that's one of those other lies that we're sold is like, if something doesn't flow, it's kind of on two camps. Like if you're not hurting yourself, then you're doing it wrong. And also if it doesn't flow, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
So you're kind of like, no matter what you do, you're not doing it right. And really it's kind of knowing, no, discomfort is part of it.
Yes,
it is. I don't have to enjoy every step of this path that I'm on to stay on it. And this path shouldn't hurt me so much that I need to get off of it.
I love that.
It shouldn't. That I think that really is the litmus test right there. And just one more note on the roles and responsibilities part. This is one of the good intention pieces of why we can get sucked into perfectionism without realizing it and paying prices for it, is because those roles that we carry, those responsibilities, they matter deeply.
Right.
They matter so much.
Right.
And that's why I really want to challenge, especially the women who are listening. It is so important to separate your identity from them. Because they matter so much. And in doing so, it doesn't negate that value. It actually enables you to show up to those roles and responsibilities as yourself.
Right.
So you can serve them better and have the energy and the foundation to do it. And so that you are not pressuring the outcomes of those roles and responsibilities to prove your own worthiness and work within them. And that's been true for a lot of the moms I've worked with, but I've coached a lot of women over the years. I've coached women who have struggled with this, with, motherhood, but I've coached women who are literally CEOs who, job market shift and suddenly they're like, who am I? I really have no idea who I am now. This is what I've done for decades and I'm good at it. And now who am I? So we all have those moments, and it's not that those things don't matter. It's that they matter so much. They need you separate from them.
I love that so much. And it's so subtle. But I love the way that you really took your time, to separate to separate that allowance, that permission for you to emerge. Actually, one of my questions, which I think you literally just answered, is if progress is more about adding something new or uncovering something that was already there. And I think you just laid it out so beautifully, like allowing yourself to fully emerge because of the situation, because it does matter, because you have purpose and you have drive and you have loved ones and you want to contribute to the world and you want to make it a better place. And not that you have to do more things or add more things, but how can we allow our fullness to be in the greatest service, in the most connected way, the most innovative way, the most rigorous way, without eroding our connection to self, but building it so that we can build something greater together. I thank you for really like slowing that down.
Oh, you said that far more beautifully than I would have been able to in that moment. But yes to that. Check mark.
Okay, so in the time that you've been coaching all of these women, or perhaps on your own journey, is there anything that you have noticed that has been like a surprising area or belief or shift that a person can take that then has a disproportional effect on their progress or their growth?
This one's always surprising to people, but we've already been talking about it. It's being kinder to yourself. Like if there's one place to really start as you are, kind of the proof is in the pudding here. So like as you're trying to make the pudding and try to do things differently, meaning to still try, but to do it from a different place of like already knowing that the outcome isn't going to prove you and making space for failure and staying on the path. Like if you're going to try, then you also have to be kinder to yourself along the way. That's probably the first major thing, is shifting the way you self-narrate, the way you talk. And I'm actually not a super woo-woo person. I love the people who are. That doesn't naturally come to me. I'm more cerebral, if you probably picked up on that. But that really is like it. The way we talk to ourselves has huge power, but it's often the very thing that is the scariest for people to shift. Because so many of us are convinced that the only way we can change is by being mean to ourselves.
Right.
Okay. That's that shame voice. We have such a harsh inner critic. And oftentimes that voice is actually someone from our past. It's often a parent or a sibling or a friend or a teacher or a coach. So if there's one thing that is going to make a huge difference, it's being kinder to yourself. And thankfully, that's supported by science. Like, there's a ton of research on this. Kristen Neff is an amazing researcher on self-compassion. There's multiple others too. But making space for your humanness is, another way I can say this is accepting your humanness is really important. But acceptance does not equate apathy like you fear it does. It doesn't. It helps you stay on the path. Okay. When you know you misstep or you have an off day or things don't go according to plan, you stay on the path because you expect it. You expect it because you accept it. So it's not like, oh, like this is just who I am. Like it's not a take it or leave it mentality that you're just not going to try anymore. No, you will try and try and try and try and keep trying because you're allowed to be human along the way. Okay. So that self-compassion, that self-kindness is vital. And if there's one more bonus one I'll give to you, it also comes back to more of like this touchy-feely thing of believing. We're never going to do things we don't believe will actually help.
True.
We really won't. We will not. So what I want you to believe in is what the process of progress actually looks like. The process is small wins build over time. We've already talked about it's not linear. It's not overnight. It's not giant efforts lead huge yields. Like it doesn't yield huge results. Okay. That's actually not true. That doesn't really exist. If you see someone who looks like they're an overnight success or like made huge strides and had huge gains, they're paying prices you cannot see. And that's not to discredit the achievements they have, because those are amazing too. But there are always prices you cannot see.
That's a good point.
Okay. Even if we're going back to that disconnection with self, that's going to hurt them in ways that they don't even know yet.
True.
Okay. But they're likely paying prices to their relationships, to their health, to their mental health, their spirituality. Like there's so many things you do not see. Okay. So instead, if you believe that the path to to change, real lasting, sustainable change is actually this process that small wins build over time. You have to believe it in order to practice it. So that first thing we said is embody more kindness towards yourself. The second thing is embody more belief that what it actually looks like to change is small wins building over time. And that's when you can keep adding in those small wins, small wins, small wins, small win. That's why I've grown exponentially the last 10 years. If you listen to, I know not everyone is a podcaster who listens here, obviously, but if you listen to, I've now done, I'm approaching 800 official episodes, but I've done almost 900. I've interviewed.
Holy smokes,
Yeah, a lot.
Monica.
I've interviewed probably over 650 people. Okay.
Wow.
If you listen to my first interviews, cringeworthy. Cringeworthy.
I'm sure they were, Monica. But yes, compared to now, the wisdom,
especially because still one of the most listened ones was my 11th episode. And it still is to this day the one that keeps getting so many listeners a year. And I'm always like, I wish I'd had more practice under my belt. But what I've done now with almost 10 years of my podcast, I've had to embody what I preach over time. I would say I have had the goal of excellence with podcasting, but it has taken me now nearly 900 episodes total.
Wow.
To get anywhere close to it.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. But that's anything that is worthy of our work and our passion you're playing the long game.
Yeah.
And I wish overnight success were true. Like, I would love to be an overnight success now. Like, I think I've put in the time, but I'm still banking on that not being the real way to sustainably grow my podcast or my work or whatever it may be. Podcasting is probably going to change next week again. I've had to shift it so many times, but that's been true for anything that I've pursued.
Yeah.
From rearing my kids, I have special need kids, to working on things within my marriage, to figuring out my career, anything worth doing.
Yeah.
Has been the long game.
Yeah.
And it's been the small wins too.
Yeah. I think that's what I really hear when you say it. It's not about like the achievement and the outward stuff, but it's really the why, there's a reason you've done 900 episodes and you've gone after it 10 years because there's something inside of you that feels alive, that feels connected, that feels in purpose and service. It's like so much more than an overnight win or a top rated podcast
or a viral,
viral
anything,
best-selling author.
Besides my 11th interview, which who knew that would be the one to go viral. But and I think with this, maybe a way to sum that up is one of my biggest lessons over the last 10 years of pursuing progress outside of perfection. And by the way, I probably will not be a podcaster until I'm 80 years old. Like, that's going to change someday. So that's going to shift. That's going to pivot. That's not like the thing I'm holding on to, but it's been a big pursuit and passion, that I've worked on. But the biggest thing I've learned, transcending my online business or my personal pursuits and the relationships I worked on and the inner healing, I've still had to work a lot on my recovery too for 20 years, right? The biggest thing I've learned is that the transformation lies in the process, not the outcome.
Right.
And the transformation is me. When I know that, then I know the arrival is actually right now. This very moment. It's on the path that I'm arriving every day. And the whole why, the whole point is me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to say that earlier when we were talking about the arrival fallacy. It's like what you were describing as arrival to me, arrival inward, and arrival to self is really the true arrival. And you illustrating that through your stories of the journey back to self over and over in different ways and different flavors. And I think even talking about the overnight success, and realizing that it's the process, it's like that, what is that cliche? It's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah.
But really, that's what we're talking about, right? Is the journey of self-discovery, the journey of self-expression, the journey of life, of living. And not like something we do when we get over there, but this right now in the failure, in the progress. That's so beautiful. And I love that you bring that up and you really bring a different layer and intention of purpose and service behind, all the byproducts of a top ranked podcast and, all these other accolades as a byproduct of who you are.
hmm and because those things will change, but it doesn't mean that
Right.
they're not worthy of pursuing too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's everything we've talked about today is about a balance, a
Yeah.
delicate line that we're trying to just kind of just be on. And
Yeah.
it's all about, tweaking and noticing, and when you're kind of starting to fall off or going a different direction, or you're getting challenged in a new way for the same thing you
Right.
thought you worked on, and that's okay.
Yeah. The spiral, what do you call it? The spiral curriculum?
Yeah, a spiraling
Yeah.
curriculum. Yeah, but that's like our life, right? Like we're
Yeah,
always
exactly.
spiraling, but we often say that like, oh, I'm spiraling, like I'm spiraling down. If you can
Mm,
spiral down, you spiral up.
that's
So
right.
one thing I tell my clients all the time is, since failure is part of it and the spiraling is part of it, as long as you are pointing the right direction and you are doing it and you're trying, then you're doing it right.
Hmm.
So that's another lesson we can all apply. Just being trying, and the trying is the doing.
Yeah, right. Yes. I love that. I love that. Well, maybe then in a more practical sense, we can take some of this conversation, since you're a queen of helping us take progress into the practical.
Yeah,
Talk a little bit about your book, Sticky Habits, or just
sure.
a little bit about habits themselves. And I love the name itself
Oh,
because
great.
it implies that there are some habits that are
Sustainable.
sticky, and then there are some inherently that are going to slip through or not stick.
Yeah.
And so, what, from just a human behavioral standpoint or growth standpoint, why is it that we even need to talk about sticky habits? Like, why are
Mhm.
there some habit systems that fail even when you are motivated?
So I could talk for at least another hour on that topic. So I'm going to hold back because I can fire hose people. And maybe we'll have to do like another, if you want a follow up, we can
Yeah.
go in the nitty gritty of this. But let me just say, I'm a habits and identity coach for a reason,
Mm,
because it's not just about our identity. It's also about our behaviors, and it's not just about our behaviors. It's about our identity. These two work together. A
right.
big missing piece in this puzzle of habit formation and behavior design is identity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so much of the habit industry is based on perfectionism. And
Mm,
it's a kind of perfectionism that is not available to women especially.
mm,
And that's what I teach in this book.
mm-hmm.
I know in the very beginning of our conversation, I told the women who are failing
Mm-hmm.
and are feeling tired of the failure to take
Mm-hmm.
note of how they were getting failed. Like they weren't failing, they were getting set up to fail. That's habits, especially for women. We are getting set up to fail right and left all over. And this has started in eighth grade health class, when we learned about how many days it takes to form a habit.
Mm-hmm.
21, 28, 30 days of rigid perfection in order to have the consistency we need to have a habit. That's all wrong for us. That's going to set us up to fail. And again, I could teach you way about that, but here's what I want women to know, what this book is about and who it's for. If you liked anything we said about perfectionism today and what we talked about, that is the heart of how I teach habits differently.
Mm-hmm.
There's space for failure. There's space for
Mm-hmm.
humanness.
Mm-hmm.
The way that we create habits still lives and dies by consistency, but consistency
Mm-hmm.
is possible thanks to flexibility.
Mm,
And that's what I
yes.
teach you how to do, especially as a woman who, it doesn't matter if you have kids in the home or not. Research back, it shows that women deal with far more interruptions, far more unpredictability, less energy, less time than men. And yet, all the habit leaders out there are men. So,
Wow.
we need a habit formation method that is designed by a woman for women. We can take what's good out there because there is good, but we need to apply it in ways that are practical to our very different realities. So much of what is taught in the habit world is done in ways where they think it transcends gender, meaning it's gender neutral, and that's not true. And,
Mm,
again, this is about what I go into the book. So in the book, I teach you about that. There's
mm-hmm.
decades of research on why women's lives are different than men's lives. It's not just an
Mm-hmm.
anecdotal thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I teach you why the habit methods set us up to fail, knowing that reason, and then
Mm-hmm.
how to use what's good out there because it's not all garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how to use what's actually good in these methods, but to apply them in ways that match our realities. This book is for any woman who has failed a habit or all of her habits, or more recently, the same habits she always had are now like she's struggling majorly with them. If you have failed at habits, this book is for you because it will help you know that you are not the failure. The system is failing you.
I
So
love
that's
that.
all in there. It's called Sticky Habits, and the long title I think just helps embody what this is. It's a guide for women to ditch perfectionism, reclaim happiness, and create habits that last. And one other spoiler I can give you is habits are helpers. It's not about
Mm.
metrics or prescriptions we have to meet or uphold. Habits are there to help us. Their only job is to support us. So we're
Mm.
going to reframe habits. We're going to redefine them. We're going to form them differently. And because of that, we're going to actually be able to be the people that we
Hmm.
need to be so that the world can be a better place and that our lives can improve too, that we can reclaim our lives as our own.
I love that. And I love that connotation that like maybe habits are just not only thinking about your conditions, but rearranging your conditions so that you can more naturally emerge or like be your
Yeah.
ally instead of something that you're fighting against, like something that's fighting for you with that space for flexibility and human connection. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually why I started getting the habits is, I didn't tell you the history not, and this is short, don't worry. But, when I started working on progress outside of perfectionism, I started with identity
mhm.
and that did help tremendously. And it was changing my life. But then I hit a plateau.
Mm.
And that's because my day-to-day life was not
Mm.
supporting that identity. It
Interesting.
came
Yeah.
down to the basics. Like I needed to sleep.
Right.
I needed to sleep. I needed to eat. I needed to like journal or meditate or have something, it was the
So
basics
true.
and
Monica, you're so
hand in
right.
hand. Yeah. But
Yeah.
then when I tried and I kept failing, and thanks to being on this path of progress, not perfection, that's when I was able to get curious about why are these methods not working for me? And then why are they
Yeah.
not working with the women, turned hundreds of women that I was working with. And that's my eureka moment of being like, these methods were not designed for women. They can't be gender neutral because our lives are
Mm.
different.
Yeah.
So that's kind of more of the backstory. This is why habits matter. Again, not so that we hit certain metrics that prove our goodness, but so that we can feel supported to be ourselves.
Yeah. That's right. I love that. It feels like permission. It feels like freedom. It feels
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that you started it with identity. I remember a few years ago this exercise or example that was like giving the example, maybe it was like from the Artist's Way or something like
Oh,
that. It was
yeah.
from some book that was like,
Uh-huh.
you're not, I have to remember
I know,
how
like I've
it
got
was
it on my
said.
shelf, but I actually don't have great recall. Isn't that funny? Like there's very few things I'm like word for word, here you go.
Yeah. But it was like the difference between when you identify yourself as a writer, for
Yeah.
example, you just naturally you're going to go write. It doesn't matter, is it going to get published or not? Is this part of my book? Is it not? Is it part of the research? It's not. I identify as a writer.
Yeah.
Therefore, I write. Versus like, I don't know how to write, but I want to put this, collection of stories together. Shoot, now I have to go do this thing outside of me, outside of my identity. It feels taxing. It feels uncomfortable. What if this doesn't work? And just that subtle shift in identity of what you're saying was
Yeah.
like such an interesting reflection and exercise to do of how truly you were saying behavior and identity are so intertwined and how
Yes.
one can influence the other. And I think usually we think of it in a unilateral
Yeah.
direction or behavior.
They work together. And actually, that's one big part of what I teach you how to do in the book is how you're shifting your identity can shift your habits, but also shifting your habits can change your identity, the way you see yourself. So, you can work on one and the other or the other to work on both, which is beautiful. And that's actually been the biggest benefit of teaching how to do habits differently to women is
Mhm.
it's not the habit. It's the confidence. It's the
Ah,
identity shifts. And it's the reclamation of who they actually want to be because they're being it. They're doing
I
it.
love that. That's so beautiful. It just feels so grounded and strong and yeah, just so beautiful. Like everyone go by Sticky Habits.
Thank you.
I
Thank
can't
you.
wait for it to come out.
Yeah, it's coming out September 8th, but they can pre-order it if they're listening to it before or after. And either way, they can actually go to stickyhabitsbook.com. You
Hmm.
have some great pre-order bonuses. You can see the people who've endorsed it, including Eve Rodsky, who wrote Fair Play, and Casey Davis, who wrote Struggle Care, and multiple other like people I respect so much. Anyway, it's been a years long process. Speaking of
That's
like playing the long game, this has been my work for about 7, 8 years, all poured into
wow.
this book. So go to stickyhabitsbook.com.
Wow. That's amazing. And maybe this is at the intersection of purpose, which we were talking about earlier, self-compassion and identity.
Yes.
But in the more practical terms of habits and habit keeping, when you are committed to a vision, to a project, to a relationship, a career, whatever it is, and you keep showing up and you keep showing up and you're still not seeing the results that you hope to see. And, there is that distinction. We were talking about doing something because it is who you are and it fills up something inside, but also being allowed to want it because of what it brings you.
Yeah.
What would you say to encourage those people, or how do you stay committed when you're still not seeing the external, I guess, realization of those commitments or habits that you're embodying?
I would say you are not alone. That is not just a shared experience, it's a universal one.
Mm-hmm.
You're not broken to feel like, why aren't my outcomes matching the very real work I'm putting in, and the messy work where I'm like using more curiosity and compassion and I'm having courage, and I keep believing in this process and I keep putting in the small wins, and it still is frustrating. Yeah. Like I said, I wish overnight success would just happen. I'm ready for it now. But is to just kind of humanize that in a way where, this isn't me doing it wrong. And when I know that, like, this is actually a universal experience, then I also know I can open myself up to truly understand my why behind the pursuit. If other things have shifted, if I'm allowed to choose a different path or to go a different direction, or if I'm allowed to stay on it, but do it in different ways, or if it's more just about coming back home to myself again in order to keep going on the same path. Meaning, at the end of the day, you still get to choose. And there are very few times where we make a wrong choice. I would say those only immoral choices that are really hard to reverse. And I'm thinking big, immorality things like infidelity or murder. I mean, I'm not trying to be light about this, but I'm also trying to say there are very few times where we're like, I made the wrong choice and I can't change it. There's always pivots to any path, and you're allowed to make them. And so don't lose heart. Come back home to knowing this is a shared experience and this is who I am, and then move forward and making choices that feel right. And with time, you will figure it out. That's a 100% certainty. You will figure it out. It may just take time.
I love
A
that.
lot longer than you want.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I love that return to agency and return to choice, and doing it with permission and allowing, like you said, the progress and the process to be the beauty of it. So no matter the pivot or the detour, it's part of the wabi-sabi of the beauty.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so, I cannot believe that we are up on time. I feel I could talk to you forever.
Same. You asked great questions. So I've appreciated this time together so much.
Same. You have been just so wonderful and delightful. And I'm so glad to know your story and to know that you are out there, that you exist, and that you are helping so many hundreds of women move through their life with more freedom and more self-trust, and with more, not only that, but also the structures and the frameworks to have both the internal game and the external sort of tools.
I love that that's what you're picking up on. And that's something I always strive to do. Is I hope all my work is both deep and practical. So I appreciate that. I feel like we did that today together, thanks to you and your leadership in this interview, and your sincerity and also preparation too. Thank you very much for this amazing conversation.
Oh my gosh. How can everybody find you beyond the sticky books if they want to be coached by you or do other things with you? Where can they go?
Yeah. So beyondstickyhabitsbook.com, since you're already listening to a podcast, search for About Progress, and then come listen. And hopefully you like what you hear enough to follow and subscribe. I would love to have you there. And I'm on Instagram as well, at About Progress.
Amazing. And I'll have all of that in the show notes below.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So thank you. Thank you, Monica, for being here and sharing everything with us. And to all of you out there, wishing you play, possibility, and peace, wishing you to feel deeply supported in this space. And I'm so honored to be a part of your soul tribe. Sending you love, and I'll see you next week. Subscribe to the SoulSHINE podcast to never miss an up level. I love hearing your feedback and your questions, so leave an honest review to help more people find the Shine Tribe. Screenshot and email if you have a 5-star review to hello@soulshine.global, and we'll give you a free downloadable meditation and enter you to win a free private coaching session. Giveaways will occur at every 50 review milestone, and your entry will always remain in the draw. Join our community to learn and practice cognitive emotional tools for personal growth and career success. Visit soulshine.global, follow us on Instagram at soulshine_global, or email hello@soulshine.global. Thanks.